Good morning, you guys. Welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're having a wonderful, festive, and just enjoyable holiday season. And we're going to make another holiday treat today. I've been waiting on making this one because we've had quite a bit of rain in our forecast. And I don't know if you guys know this, but they tell you not to make candy when it's raining. And I don't understand the science of it all, but somehow the humidity can affect your candy making. So the rain has moved out of our forecast now. It's going to be nice and dry. And so we can make the candy that my brother and my nephew want every year for Christmas. So we're going to make some toffee. It's so simple. It's just the most basic ingredients: some brown sugar, some butter, chocolate chips. If you want, you could add nuts. If you want, you could add some like finishing salt on top. You could do things all kinds of ways. We're making it very simple today, just the brown sugar, the butter, and the chocolate. But I thought we would make this together because it's a little bit different making candy on an induction stovetop. I learned that my first year when I tried to just follow the directions and do it like I always had. I ended up with really grainy candies. And I think it's because the induction heats so much faster than a regular electric stove that my candy got to temperature before my sugar had completely dissolved. So the biggest thing I've learned here is that if the recipe calls for cooking it at like a medium temperature, you have to start lower than that and get your sugar completely dissolved before you knock it up to the temperature called for. Otherwise, you end up with grainy sugar crystals in your toffee or your fudge, and nobody wants that. We want our candies to be luscious and perfect, just like they're supposed to be. So I am making a double batch of this because my brother and my nephew will definitely eat it all. Everybody else in the family likes it too, but those two in particular, they really want it. So we just need to melt this butter and brown sugar together, and then we're going to bring it to around 300 degrees. We're looking for the hard crack stage because this toffee is definitely one where you break it and it's nice and crunchy. And so 300 degrees is right about what we're looking for. And I will show you guys what this looks like through the various stages of cooking, because there's definitely a change in how the sugar and butter look as it gets hotter. Our butter is almost melted and our brown sugar is starting to dissolve, but it's still a little bit grainy. So I have this set on a medium low, and it will stay there until the brown sugar is completely dissolved. And then we'll turn it up to a medium. But if this is the first time you've ever seen toffee making, the first time I ever made it, I was a little bit concerned about the fact that the butter just kind of looks like it sits on top of the brown sugar here. But I promise it incorporates as the cooking process goes along. So we'll come back and look at this once our brown sugar is completely dissolved. Our brown sugar has dissolved completely, and so I've turned the temperature up to medium, and it's starting to boil here. And so I have, it's just this very cheap thermometer I got at like Walmart, I think. I'm trying to make it. So you can see there where it says hard crack at right around the 300 degree mark. And that is the temperature we are looking for on this. Now, this is different than making a caramel if you've made caramels before, but not toffee, in that you do want to stir this the whole time. I'm pretty sure it's the butter in the toffee recipe that allows you to stir it, because if you're familiar with caramel making, you don't want to disturb it because your sugar will crystallize. But that's not the case with toffee. So I'm going to get my thermometer in here since this is boiling. And I think I'm going to turn you guys onto a time lapse and you can see how this changes as the temperature rises. This was about 20 minutes of stirring the butter and brown sugar, they just got airy and the texture starts changing. It gets kind of thicker. The butter solids start to brown and you can really smell the nuttiness of that, and it just smells amazing. Hey guys, our toffee is all to temperature, and so I have parchment paper on just a metal baking sheet here. I'm pouring this all out. You do want to do this quite quickly because it starts setting relatively fast, I think. We always have a little bit in our pot that gets hard. And so I just like to spread this out. The original recipe that I use for this, it calls for either doing it like this, or it says you can put it in a baking dish that's smaller if you would like thicker toffee. But this stuff is so rich between all that butter and brown sugar and the chocolate on top that I don't really think personally our family needs bigger, thicker pieces. And so I do the spread out version. I do have this sitting on a cooling rack because it cools faster with that airflow underneath. Now that our toffee is all spread out, we're gonna top it with chocolate chips. You could use whatever chocolate you want here. If you wanted a fancier chocolate, you could do that. I'm just using semi-sweet chocolate chips, and this calls for 2 cups because I'm making a double batch. So I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but this is like equal parts. It's 2 cups brown sugar, 2 cups butter, and 2 cups chocolate. And the heat of the toffee will melt our chocolate chips. And then we can spread them around nice and evenly on the top. So I'm just going to let this sit for a minute or 2 until my chocolate melts, and then we'll spread it all out nice and evenly on top. I don't know how well it comes through on the camera, but I think you can see that our chocolate is all nice and melted. And so now we can just smear it out nicely on top of our toffee. This is when, if I was going to add like a finishing salt or something, I would sprinkle it in here so that it gets caught in the soft chocolate, and then it'll stay in place when the chocolate hardens. Our toffee is all ready to just sit here and cool. If you have room in your freezer and you want to expedite this process, it only takes about 20 minutes in the freezer for this to cool down so that you can snap it into pieces. I don't have room in my freezer, so we're just going to have to wait for it to cool. This will probably take a few hours. But while this is cooling, I'm actually getting started on a smaller second batch. This batch I am making with coconut sugar. So if you've been around, you have probably heard me mention that I don't tolerate cane sugar very well, and it inflames my joints. And so I've been making my holiday treats with organic cane sugar, organic brown sugar. But when it comes to the candy making, and there's such a high amount of sugar in it, I find that this coconut sugar works really well in this recipe, and my joints will be thanking me for not eating the brown sugar version. So once both of these batches have cooled off and I'm able to break them up into pieces, we'll come back and I'll show you what they look like side by side. The coconut sugar, I would say there's just a little hint of bitterness to it that you don't get with the brown sugar. But if you weren't taste testing them side by side, I honestly don't think anybody would know. My mom was sort of eating both of them interchangeably last year, and she didn't really know which one she was eating at the time. So I'll see you guys back here probably in a few hours once these have cooled down. I did want to go ahead and show you guys that the coconut sugar is quite a bit darker than the brown sugar I used. And so this will be a darker toffee because this is before it's done any caramelizing. I hope you guys enjoyed that little Christmas tour in my house. It's just fun. I always like having the decorations out, and I love seeing other people's Christmas decorations. So I thought you guys might enjoy that while I was waiting for the chocolate to harden on this toffee. So let's start breaking into this. I want to show you guys how easy this is to break. It just snaps just like that. I do like to break it in relatively small pieces. You're sort of at the mercy of the toffee itself, but I don't want too big because my nephew, he will eat as much of it as you will let him. And if I just left it as this big piece, he'd be like, for me, thank you. So smaller pieces are better. But just like that, a little bit of elbow grease, but not too bad. We can break it all up. So I do want to show you guys, I snapped a couple pieces on the coconut sugar version, and here you can see on the toffee side the difference in color. This is the brown sugar one, and this is the coconut sugar one. They're both delicious. They both are cooked exactly like they should be. This is just a darker sugar, and so it turned out a lot darker. If you wanted to make the brown sugar version with a dark brown sugar, you could, and it would just maybe be a little bit more molassesy flavored. So let's take a bite. I'm gonna eat the coconut sugar one. This might be my favorite Christmas treat. That buttery, sugary goodness with that chocolate on top is just so good. And the crunch, oh, it's just so good. I think you guys could probably hear that in the microphone. But I'm gonna get this all broken up and put into tins. And I think I will show you guys how I'm gonna package this up. Guys, if you ever get Christmas tins of cookies and you have somewhere to store the packaging, you should keep them. Because I don't even know how many years I have been reusing this tin. It still has part of the sticker on it. But I'm just gonna line this with some pretty festive red parchment paper and pile our toffee in here. Really couldn't be more simple. And then when you're done, your tin is like a decoration on the table. Well, you guys, I hope if you have ever considered trying to make candy and you just thought it was too intimidating and so you didn't, that this will inspire you to give it a try. I mean, you have to keep an eye on the temperature and you have to keep stirring. And as long as you do those two things, your candy is going to come out fantastic. So thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.